Thank you, Pamela, for Culture Horde's work tonight. Thank you, Gareth Cliff. You did a great job. Your Madiba imitation was even better than Morgan's. I was going to do one, and you've intimidated me. I want to thank our great friend Zelda LaGrange, who was just a young girl in the presidency office when Madiba was elected. It's her story to tell how they became close and friends, but she was there with him every step of the way as president and when he left until his last day on earth. And here she is still with him tonight. I thank her for that. I thank my friend Morgan Freeman, who has been a real blessing in my life and has the most wonderful voice. He narrated a film for me on the work of our foundation. And I was thinking to myself, you know, it's true, as Cello said, I'm already old and gray, and now I have to fit myself somehow between the Soweto Gospel Choir and the voice of God over there. So cut me some slack. I'm doing the very best I can tonight. I thank Mayor Dinkins, who physically brought Nelson Mandela into the life of my family, Hillary, Chelsea, and me. He was our friend collectively and individually in ways that at this late hour I can't recount. But you never forget, ever, when someone is good to your child. And when I was president and he was president and I had the honor of serving during his entire term, we often did a lot of business when it was late at night in America. And he had risen early in South Africa to go to work, and I was always trying to accommodate his schedule. But he never talked to me once that he didn't ask, even if we were having some heated disagreements, which, believe it or not, occasionally happened. He had a job to do, and I did too. He always asked about Hillary, he always asked about Chelsea. He always asked if my daughter was up and wanted me to go get her so he could make sure she was doing her homework. Chelsea, it is not enough to be smart. And he would tell her to work. When she went off to England after graduating from university, after we were both out of office, he was there often, and he called her repeatedly, something she did not tell me until he passed away. I want to thank the Soweto Choir, whom I last heard on American soil in my hometown in Little Rock, Arkansas, almost 8 years ago. You're getting better with age. And you don't look older. I want to make a couple of points. The previous speakers have been kind enough to say that I have been obsessed with whether we could raise the funds necessary to keep Madiba's memory alive and to keep this work going. And I thank you for that. I thank Cello for what he said, but I think we should tell the whole truth. When I pledged $1 million, I didn't have $1 million, but I raised it and we paid it. But that was a lot of American friends of Nelson Mandela. Last time it was all my money when I took it. But the biggest chunk we raised was one night in South Africa when I stopped in Madiba and I did an event in the daytime. As I remember, it was in a children's hospital, and then we did an AIDS event. And he was tired and didn't want to go out at night. I said, don't worry, we'll do this. And Cello was there. We were going to have an auction. And Madiba was always ragging me, because it was my job when I was president to rag him about being friends with Gaddafi and Castro and you know, whoever who had always supported him, and it was his job to rag me about being narrow-minded on the Cuban embargo. So we laughed about it, and then I was going to this event, and Cyril Ramaphosa said to me, I know you said the Americans would participate in the auction, but he said, Madiba said there's one item at this auction that you have to bid on, just you. Don't let any other American have it. I said, what is it? He said, oh, he said you would know quite well what it is when it comes up. So, about midway through the auction, this beautifully packaged bottle of Cuban rum comes up. And under American law, I cannot legally return with it to the United States. And I did not have the capacity to consume it all before I got home. So I started bidding on it, and Cyril, who had, you know, 100 times more money than I did, started bidding against me. I said, you can't do this. What are you doing? He said, oh, this is part of the deal. So I think I paid $11,000 for that bottle of rum. One of the best buys I ever made. Why am I telling you this? For something really important. Mandela's life teaches us two things, not one. First, it teaches us that what we have in common is more important than our interesting differences, and therefore that cooperation will always work better than conflict. Interestingly enough, Madiba learned this as a young person being raised in a traditional way in South Africa and then through those long years in prison. But science has confirmed it. We now know that genetically, now that we have sequenced the human genome, that we are all 99.5% the same. Literally every non-age-related difference you can see. Every non-age-related difference you can see, including the difference in our skin color, our body shape, our height, whether we're basses or tenors or sopranos. It's all rooted in just 0.5% of our genome. Now, don't nearly all of us spend 99.5% of our time thinking about the 0.5% of ourselves that is different and wishing it were different than it is different? I'd like to be a little taller, a little thinner, a little, you know. He understood that. And we also now know that cooperation works better than conflict in painful ways. The world is awash in mean, bitter, violent failures. Why? Because people wanted to make it all their way or the highway. What is the disappointment of the Arab Spring? Egypt, Tunisia, why are they fighting in Syria? Why, having gotten rid of Saddam Hussein, is Iraq still riven in conflict? Because there aren't enough people who want to share the future with people who are different from them, who want to be inclusive. Which brings me to the second point, more important. In all those long years in prison, he learned that you cannot be the person you wish to be in the public sphere until you are inside. Every person here in this sanctuary tonight has some legitimate cause to be angry at someone else, has some legitimate cause to feel resentment, remorse, regret, and anger. But I seriously doubt if all of our causes combined would amount to the intensity of justified anger that Madiba could feel from having its whole adulthood taken away, the best years of his life, seeing his children grow up, watching a marriage crumble, having to reconstitute a life, the loneliness. How did he go through all this and come out a better man than he went in? Once we were talking, and I said to him, you know, I got Chelsea up early in the morning when you got out of prison, and we watched you walk. And I know you brought your jailers to your inauguration. I know you put the people who put you in prison in your government. But tell me the truth. When you were walking to freedom for the last time, when you knew you were going to be free, didn't you hate them again? And what I loved about him, because he was not a saint, he said, well, of course I did. He said, I felt hatred and I felt fear because I hadn't been free in so long. But he said, I got over it in about 3 seconds. I said, why? He said, because I knew if I hated them, when I got in that car and drove out the gate, I would still be a prisoner. I wanted to be free, and so I let it go. All over the world today, human affairs are being dictated by people who are not free because they can't let anything go. And because they're afraid to reach out to some people who are different from them. And a lot of times their fears are well-founded. A lot of times their anger is completely justified, but it doesn't work. One of the few great figures of our era who has outlived Mandela is a Nobel Prize winning scientist,